Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tom's Hardware Live. We're sitting down with hardware vendors at this year's all-virtual CES 2021 to get a sneak peek at the products they have planned for this year. So I'm your host, Sharon Harding, Tom's Hardware Senior Editor, and we've got a full house today. So let me break it down for you. Andrew Friedman is here. He's Tom's Hardware's laptops expert. Hey, Andrew. And Jared Walton is also here. He is our graphics expert at Tom's Hardware. Hey, Jared.
Hello again, Sharon.
Hello again. And we're all very happy to welcome Cliff Chun from MSI. How are you, Cliff?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So Cliff is here to give us a preview of MSI's 2021 lineup. We'll be kicking things off with systems. And this is also a chance for the viewers to ask questions. So if you have anything you'd like to ask about what you see in the next few minutes, just drop your question into the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to answer it live on the air. So Cliff, what is MSI announcing at CES this year?
Okay, so we're going to be talking about laptop and a desktop, that we'll talk about our component products down the road. So without further ado, I want to show you guys all of our brand new laptop right here. In front of me in the middle, this one is our flagship GE76 Radar. Last year, we launched the GE66 Radar, and people really like it, and we want to provide a 17-inch versions of this. So as you see, a couple of the new features that we have, keeping the old RGB keyboards in the front. The new features that we have on this one is obviously the new Ampere graphic card. This one will go the full power 3080. We also have a full HD webcam built in the very thin bezel out here. Obviously, everybody's doing a lot more video conferencing and stuff like that, so that's why we go ahead and put the full HD webcam. Alongside with this unit will also come with the Wi-Fi 6E. A lot of people want a much more smoother connections for the gaming or for the streaming, that kind of stuff. So we go ahead and put the Wi-Fi 6E in this unit. In this laptop, as you see, this one is a normal version. We will also launch our Dragon Edition, what we call the Tiamat Edition. Tiamat is a Babylon mother of all gods. Obviously, she is a dragon, and that's why. And that one pretty much over in this size, all engraved and designed. So that's what pretty much this one has. Obviously, it comes with our standard stuff, our SteelSeries keyboard, Dyna audio speakers. Another couple of stuff that we're changing in here is also the cooling, because we are putting it all the way up to i9 and also 3080 graphic card inside. The cooling itself, you can't really see in here. Inside the heat pipes, we're making it a little bit bigger and fatter, so that way the cooling is no problem whatsoever. Screen-wise, we have 4K options, 144 Hz on the Full HD, 240 and 300 Hz on the Full HD options also.
Very cool. So I reviewed the predecessor of that, and I love the RG light bar at the bottom. So I guess you didn't have many problems with it breaking or anything like that, because you're bringing it back with the new edition.
Yeah, that's not so ever because we have a very tempered glass type of design over in the front. At least this whole year, we have never been seen any units coming back as RMA with a broken glass. So we believe this is a good thing. Obviously, the RGB is programmable depending on the games. It will also reflect what is happening in the games also. Or, if you listen to music, watching movies, it will also follow through.
Very cool.
Yep. So this is our flagship GE series. The next one we're going to talk about is our GP. GP Leopard have been our mid-range laptop. What it is a lot of engineers, like the hybrid gamers, workers type of stuff, they want to have this for work because they really need that powerful performance, and they want to use it for gaming at home. A couple of stuff that people really like about our GE series is the performance, but in the same time, they cannot convince their boss to buy RGB gaming laptop for work. So we kind of mushed up the whole GE and GS stealth. So the GE chassis designs, the hinge, the ports, location, stuff like that, we're all good to go. But we also using our GS Stealth black cool subtle color scheme on this one. So this is our GP Leopard. We do have a 15.6 inch and 17 inch options. And this one goes all the way up to a RTX 3070. and also a Core i9 options. The cooling itself is practically the same as our GE series, and we do have a lot of options of the panels. For example, like 144 hertz, 240, and 300 hertz, depending on the screen size and configurations.
I see you have the Tiamat wallpaper on that one. Is that one also going to have a Tiamat limited edition, or is that strictly for the Raider?
It's just strictly for the Raider for now. We're only keeping one series, our flagship series, to have the Dragon Edition for now.
And how many of those are you going to make of the Dragon Edition?
Right now, the first lot is somewhere around 5,000. Usually, because it's sold out really quickly, and we might pump out another lot, and we won't go too much for it because we want to keep it as a limited edition, like how we always have been for the past generations.
What are your thoughts on like putting the ports on the back? I see that you put some of them on the back. Like, it feels like there's pros and cons to doing that.
Well, one of the things is like the GE Raider and the GP Leopard series, people wouldn't be traveling too much. So we want to have all the major ports like the Ethernet, the power, and HDMI kind of stuff all in the back. That way it will get out of the way. And doesn't matter if you're lefty or righties, it doesn't really, blocking your mouse.
They're also
so that's
not
more
yeah.
your that's kind of your high-end, more desktop replacement as opposed to a true portable laptop, because getting out the sides is easier, but then like you say, you get into the problem of your mouse running into your cord easier.
It's also the ports like HDMI and Ethernet that you're more likely to plug in and not move around as much, because that's 17 inches the GE76, right?
Yeah, the GE76, we continuing the GE66 on the 15.6 inch options also, but I mean we still have the ports on the side, we still have the USB ports on the side, so it's still there if you want it, but obviously all the major ports, all the ones that as Andrew was saying, that it's not really moving, the Ethernets and HDMIs, those we want to keep it in the back so it just get out of the way. While we're talking about the ports, I want to say something too. We're also launching a brand new docking devices. This docking devices, which also have 100-watt power wattage support on to the laptop. And all of these generations this year, we will have all power deliveries on our laptop. So pretty much, obviously for gaming, you still need a full power brick. But for day-to-day office work and stuff like that, all you have to do is just one USB-C connection to it, and pretty much that's all you need.
So we have a question from Johnny Boy. Can you tell us a little bit more about the minimum RAM specs here in terms of speed and size?
Okay, so the quote-unquote minimum, we used to keep it around 8 gig. Obviously, most of the series is somewhere around 16 or 32. Every one of these have 2 slots, so you can go up to 64 on the memory. And then the SSDs on the GE and the GP, it have 2 M.2 NVMe options, so you can go nuts.
All right, cool. So what other systems do you got?
I want to take this opportunity. If you're looking for full specs on the MSI systems, there's this great article on tomshardware.com, and you could go read it, and it's got everything. You're gonna love it, Johnny boy.
And these are, didn't you guys say something like they're designed to be easier access to the SSD and memory for upgrades?
Correct. Yeah. So all of those, the ones that I showed you before on the GE Raider and the GP Leopard, all you have to do is just take out the screws on the bottoms, and it's right there. You don't have to pull out the motherboards like four years ago, like all of you guys complained about that. You need to pull out motherboard in order to access the memory and SSDs. We listened to you guys, and that's what we did to switch it over.
Well, thank you.
Cool. So the last one of the gaming that I want to show you guys is our Stealth 15M. Stealth 15M is our smallest, lightest portable units. Obviously, this one is roughly about 1.7 kilogram, which is equivalent to a 3.7 pounds. So it's under 4 pounds. It's also a 0.63 inches thick when the lid is closed. So this one, Stealth 15M, we kind of launched it last year. with the 11 Gen U CPU and the 2060 graphic card. But in this generations, we kind of upped the antes. We jumped it all the way up to the 11 Gen H35 CPU alongside with a 3060 graphic card inside. So this is a completely true gaming laptop in a what I like to call the quote unquote ultra bulk form factor. It's very thin, very light, very subtle. It doesn't scream gaming, even it still kind of had the Dragon logo imprinted on it. But it is still very good to go. A couple of stuff that is different in here is this one is because it's using 11 Gen H CPU, the H35 CPU. This one will comes with Thunderbolt 4 alongside with PCIe 4 in here.
Very cool. So I want to ask a question to our laptop expert, Andrew. I'm just curious what your initial thoughts are on this lineup.
So I find it fascinating how thin they are. So this is the H35. These are the Intel's new processors. They said they're launching their 35-watt Tiger Lake H parts here at CES, 45-watt probably later in the year. They're not being very specific
soon.
There.
Yeah, soon.
That's right. So obviously those are the parts that we would see in something like a Raider. I am curious about like this idea of this ultra portable gaming. A lot of them have gotten thinner and thinner with the H series, but they also, got hotter and hotter. So I'm very curious to see how this performs when we get it in for testing, how a 35-watt CPU and a 3060 go together. I mean, it sounds like if it is really thin and light as it seems, like on first glance, I mean, look, it's virtual. I have not gotten to hold it. I'm sure it is very light. But the idea of having something I can stick in a backpack and not worry about, just to sort of, maybe it won't play everything at top settings, but 3060 is going to get you pretty well. Like it sounds ambitious, and I like the idea.
Yeah, so like as you were saying, like cooling was one of the most important part on this series. That's why we kind of redesigned the fans. The leaves are only about 0.1 millimeter thick for each leaves, so that way we add more leaves and then add more airflow off the units. But this one was a challenge for us to keep it cool and keep it like not too loud while you're gaming. But for day-to-day stuff, this is good to go for for full day work.
I also say that is the keyboard. What's the RGB lighting situation on there?
So the keyboard is a full zone RGB, so you can still go RGB, but it's not a per key RGB like our GE Raider or GS Stealth or the GP Leopard, but it's still RGB options in here.
Yeah. See, I like that too. Just like this type of device might be for someone who's either traveling a lot and maybe also using it for productivity, or for someone who's a bit more casual in their gaming, and gaming is really a secondary use. So the idea, like, okay, this design isn't screaming, I play video games, like, but you could also have some of those niceties if you want them. Like, I like that idea. Again, haven't tried it yet. Cliff, I'm reaching towards it.
Yeah.
Great for someone like me who has
I'm like really like right. That's a nice looking laptop. Like you say, it's doesn't scream gamer, and it's got a 3060. I really want to see how the 3060 performs. And I mean, like I was saying before the show, I'm running NVIDIA's broadcast because I've got an RTX card, and provides your noise cancellation, your background blur effects and stuff. And it does a really good job. And I'm like, man, like I'm at the point where for professional purposes, I'd be hard pressed to not want an RTX card these days for anything I did on a laptop. So that one is definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's what people was asking, because the last year generation, it was 11 Gen U plus the 2060s. Everyone's feedback is like they loved it, but then they need a little bit more power. Give me a little bit more, because they just want it for the day-to-day stuff. So that's why we pushed the 3060s in here instead of just holding on to the lower end stuff.
I'm not sure you'll be able to tell us, but I mean, the big question in the room is going to be how a 35-watt CPU will do for gaming. How's that? Are you able to tell us how that's been internally in your testing?
Yeah, so we actually test through it. I can't tell you exact benchmark per se, but so far it's pretty promising, because it is still a very high frequency for gaming using. I mean, when you run benchmark, it's not that well, but when you're actually playing game itself, the gaming experience with a higher frequency, it's workable. It's very very smooth gaming for everyday use.
And it's got the full 35 watts for the CPU alone, whereas like on a lot of the ones you have like the 15-watt Tiger Lakes, that's 15 watts for GPU and CPU if you're using their integrated graphics. So, 35 watts gives you a lot of headroom on Tiger Lake.
For sure.
So Ruru2M has a question about this system. What's the resolution and refresh rate of the screen?
Okay, so this one comes with Full HD, and it have a few different options of 60 hertz and 144 hertz depending on the configuration.
Okay, and if I could throw one more at you, can you talk about how the power supply is going to be affected, especially standalone battery life usage time?
So this is the power brick. It's very thin, very light. You can carry it all over the place without any issues. The power, like how much battery life, is all depending on what are you doing. For day-to-day office use, we use this test drive it for like roughly about 9-10 hours. For just doing Excel and that kind of stuff. So it's the whole goal is for full day office use, and then you can plug it in at home for game if you want.
Okay.
And there's just one more thing. There's another color of that, right?
Yes. So this one is the gray. We do have a white version. Looks similar to what I'm going to talk about later on my next unit. So it's pretty much this white color on this one.
Okay. Do you have any word of a GS76 model? There's one viewer. I maybe silent. Vazia wants to know about that.
So we will have a GS76 sometime this year. Stay tuned. Andrew will be reviewing that when the time is right.
Awesome. So yeah, what else do you have for us, Cliff?
Okay, so this is the last laptop before I jump over to the desktop. So in here, as you see, this is a very tiny unit. So this is what we call the Submit E13 Flip. MSI have been doing quite a bit of the business laptop, hence the name Flip. This one is a 2-in-1 flip that you can pretty much turn it all around. And obviously, because it's a 2-in-1, this is a touchscreen options. We do comes with white with silver trim and also black with gold trim because people really like our black and gold on our GS65. A couple of cool stuff on this one is a 16:10 screen. So it's a 16:10 Full HD plus 100% sRGB IPS panel. And a couple of new stuff that we have in here. As you can see, we do comes with a pen. So this pen is a magnetic pen. It's a Microsoft pen that have a couple of different buttons. One you can pre-configure different type of programs in here. Alongside with the pen itself is 166-degree tilt. So pretty much, and also one cool thing about this is it's rechargeable by itself. This is a USB-C charging, so you can just charge it and not worry about you have to go buy a AA, AAA batteries for your pen. And other things that is different is we do have a hard switch on the webcam for customers because there are a lot of customers that really care about privacy. So that's the reason why we add a hard switch on the webcam.
Have you given any thought to making like a business version of Lucky, where he's just like in a little pie or something, so you could put him on the lid still?
Not yet. We might. That's a good suggestion. We're going to be trying that for the next year, maybe.
Lucky with a top hat.
Yep.
Yeah, like sir. All right, very cool. Well, if you have any questions about these laptops, keep them coming.
So let's go over to the desktop before we will go over to the component stuff.
Let's do it.
Okay. So in here, we don't have too much of the desktop that to talk about. So we will be revamping all of our brand new stuff. Obviously, with the new Intel chipsets launching alongside with the Ampere launching here. In front of me right here, this is our flagship Aegis Ti5. So this one, as you can see in the front, you have the little knob. You can set it to show what kinds of configurations. You can preset everything like that in there. So all you have to do is just turn the knob a little bit, kind of like how you see it using in your car. And then there is a couple of neat features that you can put your headsets on the side, either left or right. Also, this one have on the newer generations, it will still have the dual LAN, the 2.5 gig LAN and the 1 gig LAN, so that you get one for gaming, one for streaming, and then alongside we're also launching this with the Wi-Fi 6Es on this one. And on my left in here, this is what we call the Make in America units. So this one is a Infinite series that we pretty much basically the whole goal of doing that locally built in US is we will have any kinds of new launching, because all these few years everything have been launching every other quarter or so, and we will be able to offer that kind of new things for the customers as soon as it's launched.
Those are some lookers. Wow.
Yeah, those are. This one is the bigger one. We do have, the mid-range, smaller size kind of stuff, depending on the configurations and anything that's needed by the customers.
The TI5, I remember that one because that one I remember was our favorite gaming desktop from CES 2020. So it's good to see that really coming out this time.
Yeah, we actually did ship a very, very small quantity last year, but we didn't want to go too hard because we know the Amperes and the new Intel is launching in CES this year, so we're waiting it out. But we will definitely be shipping this within a month or two.
Was that the one that you said had the 5G support?
I'm sorry?
Was that the one that I remember there was a time last year they were saying it would have 5G support?
Yeah, we thought we tried it, but then the feedback from the end users is they don't really need the 5G, so we're still leaving it as optional. But if customers do really asking us for it, then we will try to do something like that down the road. But the standard version is not, because it will have the Wi-Fi 6E already, and also the dual LAN. So especially you're not carrying this in your backpack. I mean, if you are, then good for you.
That's a good workout.
Yeah, that's a very good workout. So so that's the reason why we're doing that. But we're still keeping it optional for any end users that want it.
And both of those are Intel CPU systems, or are you doing Ryzen options as well?
This one, we do have all kinds of options. We have Intel plus NVIDIA, AMD plus NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD plus NVIDIA, or AMD plus AMD. Any kind of options that customers want is there for you guys.
So what's the inspiration behind the shape of the system?
Well, this one actually synced with our whole Aegis series back in the days. We want to have a little kind of like a helmet feel, or a robot hat feel, because kind of Gundam, I don't know, for those people who watch that. So that's the kind of train of thoughts that what we want to do. We want to do something different than just a box, because a box anyone can make it, but something cool, something and then also in here there's a handle that you can just pretty much grab it. I mean, it's still a workout, but you can still one hand carry these things.
Nice. So we'll be answering more questions throughout this show. So if you have any questions on the desktops or laptops, drop them in and we can still get to them. But yeah, I'm going to ask Andrew again, what are your thoughts on these desktops?
Yeah, I mean, I remember these ones are slightly more, I believe, iterative. We've seen them a little bit. The one on your left, Cliff, you said that's one of the Made in America ones?
Yeah, so this one is our flagship Made in America one. This one is called the Infinite series. You can't really see it from the top. So it's RGB fans all over the place. And this one, we pretty much can feel anything in there.
And so I remember that, I believe that initiative started around June of last year. How popular have the Made in America desktops been?
Oh, it's awesome. We actually got ourselves into almost all the major retailers like Best Buy, Costco, Walmart, all kinds of stuff. Tell you the truth, as everybody knows, the VGA cards is in shortage.
Yeah.
As soon as I can get it, I'll slot it in and we'll be shipping it out to the end users. We have back orders left and right now.
All right, looks like we got a couple questions on the system, starting from Richard Tip. Does the big one have a handle for the glass?
For the Infinite, for the glass?
Yeah, I think that one.
Yeah, there's a little handle right here that you can pop open, and it's both sides, so left and right. Yeah, you can't really see on the other side, but yeah, it's on both sides.
That's pretty handy. And I think you talked about upgradability of the laptops a little bit, but Mike is here. Hey, Mike. And he's asking, are the laptops upgradable, such as adding more RAM or M2 SSDs or any SSDs?
Yeah, all of our laptops will comes with at least 2 soldering slot, so you can upgrade it anytime you want. SSDs, depending on the series, some of them will have 1 or 2 slots for all of our gaming lineup. For our business lineup, the memory is soldered on because we don't anticipate those kind of people to upgrade down the road. So just to make it slimmer and lighter, that's the reason.
Nice.
Cool.
So get your 32 gigabytes out the door, otherwise you'll be stuck with it for life.
Well, yeah, but then we won't put 32 into our business.
No, I'm saying for the businesses. I'm like, I used to work in IT at a shop, and I remember like people, sometimes a company would order a really kind of low spec laptop, and we're like, what'd you order this for? We now have to upgrade this. So hopefully the businesses know to get something maybe more than they think they'll need. Otherwise, someone will be using it 4 years down the road going, why do I only have 8 gig?
Imagine that.
We do have 16 and 32 options for our business. We don't carry that in the retail. It's only for certain projects, but people do ask for 32 gig, sometimes.
In general, let me ask, since you're standing next to the desktops, as a business that does both desktops and laptops, and the fact that so many people are spending time either gaming at home or working at home, which one are you seeing to be more popular right now?
Tell you the truth, as soon as there is shipments and there are stocks, those are popular. There is different usage. I mean, obviously there is for office users, for students, they tend to go a little bit more on the mobile side because they anticipate to go back to normal life, like carrying it on travel, going into schools with it. But a lot of the schools and true gamers, they really want to go for the desktop because in their head they still think that that's the full power of that. So that's the whole reason why.
Awesome. Well, I think we also have some components that we can check out.
Yeah. So I'll pass it over to DY.
Woo! Look at those.
Yeah, we got you, Brandon.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Hey, what do you got for us?
All right. So it's good to see you all. Jared, nice to see you again. It's been a year. We got mainly motherboards and graphics cards today, but we did announce earlier today a couple of other components. We had a new monitor, a new SSD, actually 2 new SSDs. So that's pretty surprising news for people who kind of well, what's next? And that's a huge one for internal components. And then we also have a new mouse. But that's just a gaming mouse. Those are things that will come later on. I don't have a lot of information to talk about them yet. That information will come. But for now,
we also have someone asking about your AIO, your core liquid AIO. I assume you don't have that either.
No, we don't. Yeah, we did talk about that as well. That will be, I believe, an MEG series. So that will be slot above our current existing MPG core liquid series. But I do not have more information to share about that at this time. So for those products that I'm just not ready to talk about, that's why I'm starting them off. Just because I can't share any more than maybe that they exist or roughly what their names are. So
no release date for that one or time frame?
The SSD actually probably will come the soonest. We're looking at maybe getting the first shipments into the United States maybe around sometime in February. But if there are situations complicate things, whether it be supply or deliveries, then that can go maybe to the end of the month. But right now we're targeting, at the very soonest, the start of February, actually.
And what about for the AIO, for the core liquid? Do you have a time frame for that?
I actually do not. So the new upcoming core liquid CPU cooler, that one is a little uncertain this time. But from what I've seen of it, it is at a point in development that I don't expect it to come say more than 3 months from now. But we will see.
All right, cool.
We will see. I'm not sure, but it's not going to be that soon.
Okay, so what do you have on your desk here?
Right. So I have a lot of graphics. I'm going to start with the graphics cards because that's probably the thing that I can talk the most about before we go into motherboards. But the graphics cards, I have 4 of them here, but actually only one of them launched today. The other 3 I have here already launched. So they're representing like the RTX 30 series, but we do have, at least for the Gaming X Trio here, it is represented on the Radeon graphics card size of things. But for now, I will be talking about what this means for our MSI graphics cards with GeForce products. So the one thing that's new is this one in the front. This is our current generation of Seahawk. So it is the latest generation of our hybrid liquid cooling cooler on a graphics card, and the GPU will be a GeForce RTX 3090 and RTX 3080. This sample here is specifically 3090, but it will basically look the same even on 3080. So I'm going to hold it up just because I think with all the various table elements and the black stuff in the background, it's going to be a little hard to see. Or maybe my late flat, that might be easier to see the table. Let's see.
Now, is there some RGB lighting on that, on the fans, or?
Actually, for this Seahawk graphics card, there is no RGB lighting.
Okay.
Actually, the lighting might be very minimal. I'm not sure if there is any at this time. I haven't seen images with it powered on. And this sample here is not intended to be functional as of yet. It is just an engineering test sample, mainly to test the fitment of the cooler and all that onto the card. But for the most part, this is how it actually should look. We have an air cooler that is just 2 slots thick, and the GPU chip itself is dedicated to cooled by liquid cooling. So that goes into this 240 millimeter black aluminum radiator, cooled by 2 MSI Torx Fan 4.0 fans. They're both 120 millimeters, which is larger than the roughly 90 millimeter fans on most of our other graphics cards in this generation. So already here, like just the fans are larger by the nature, like the fact that this cooler is almost a 2-piece set. It is still connected. There is liquid flowing through it. The pump is integrated just above the cold plate. But this is a big radiator. Like our previous generation of Seahawk were just 120 millimeters by 120 millimeters. This is 240 length on a 120 millimeter width.
So you're aiming for higher factory overclocks this round with the Seahawk, or leaving that to the end user?
This will, great question, Jared. So this will actually be mostly left to the end user, actually. So the factory overclock on this one is very modest from what I can tell. But based on our internal testing, we do expect a lot of thermal headroom with still some very low noise output, just because of the nature of we have so many fans on this. We have one for air cooling dedicated for everything else that's not the GPU, and then this large 240 millimeter radiator just for the GPU. So that's a lot of cooling for just one hot GPU chip.
So you're saying the fan on the card is mostly to handle the cooling of the VRMs?
Mostly a VRM, yes, and maybe some of the other surrounding PCB board components. It's a good point. So the cold plate under there handles both the GPU and the memory. So yeah, the air cooling is really not responsible for the memory. I guess the most critical component that likes to be cooled, that it will be helping out, is the VRM.
And is that an Asetek radiator?
It is an Asetek radiator. So it's a little hard to see, I guess, unless we get it really, really zoomed in. Yeah, it's.
It almost looks like you could do an OLED screen right there underneath the Seahawk.
We're gonna try a different camera angle. Let's see, get right underneath. I think you can barely see that glimmer of the copper base plate of the cold plate.
Yeah.
There is actually very subtle branding of the Asetek. That's actually a.
Oh yeah, you could see it. You just make it out.
All right, yeah. So we did partner with Asetek to help they lend us some of their expertise with liquid cooling solutions for especially the pump. And then we finish the rest of the graphics card and that air cooler.
And when is that supposed to launch, or is it launched officially now?
Right now, it is here in the United States. It's effectively a paper launch right now. As for like the actual hard launch, that remains to be seen. We are still finalizing our plan and strategy for how we're going to bring this, how many we're going to bring in, and who's carrying it. So as of right now, the availability is still a bit uncertain because we still need to confirm just how many we're getting out of the factory, and just and the plan that entails. Just the logistics itself is like it's a lot of work that needs to be done.
So we have some viewer questions on the GPUs. We'll start with Razer 2048. Is MSI able to offer higher power limits on the video cards? Most seem to allow only 2 to 5%, which is too small of an increase.
So the weird thing about power limits is if you look at it at just percentages, it can appear smaller. What actually is happening is if you max out the power slider and say like MSI Afterburner on any GeForce card, whether it be a RTX 3090 or 3080, if you max it out, whether it be like for some models 15% or 10%, I'm not exactly certain like what it on the specifics of that, but I know in generally if you max out that power slider, the power limit is the same for all GPUs. So if I recall for maybe 3080, it's 320 watts is the reference power limit. So if you were to like max that out to like whatever 100% slider, even on a factory overclock model, if you max out the slider, they're both effectively pulling the same. There is some calculations I can show like that the engineers have shown me like, okay, no matter what happens, they're like the factory, like whether it's factory overclocked or not, their maximum power limit as a percentage doesn't matter because
it's I've got a 3080 actually in my system right now, and I just checked it, and it's a 15% limit with the 3080. So you're looking at 368 watts theoretically, which is different than the AMD cards usually have kind of a slider that always goes up to 15% is what I've seen on the 6800 XT, for example. So like if you've got a reference card is 300 watts and you can increase that 15%, but I've got aftermarket cards where they start at 350 watts and you can still increase it 15%. So the aftermarket 6800 XTs can use quite a bit of power. I'm seeing over 400 watt power draws with overclocking and stuff on those. So yeah, NVIDIA is a little more, they like to limit things a bit more than AMD, I think, on that front.
Yeah, and it's a bit strange when people like assume like just based on those percentages and like say Afterburn, they assume like okay, the factory overclock has a limited overclocking headroom. That depends on interpretations, but based on the interpretation like the MSI engineers, like you said, Jared, like the percentage scaling, like it obscures like the actual maximum power limit, which hopefully should have been represented in watts. But some cars behave differently than others, so like we can't exactly like give it exacts of why they do this way in like the software overclocking features.
Okay. And then we have another question from Johnny Boy, which I gotta say, I love having to say Johnny Boy.
Johnny Boy sounds like John Boy Walton. That should be my brother.
So in regard to maximum GPU utilization, what is MSI doing to separate themselves from competitors like Asus and Eser?
So this is an interesting question in that really everyone has kind of concluded the same like solution to the same problem. Now the specifics of how we approach that problem differ, but the general solution is just put on the best thermal like solution you can. So the best heatsink, the best fans, best cooler design, however that may be. So, and that's just due to the nature of how the NVIDIA GPU works. If GPU boost, it will basically automatically overclock itself based on how much thermal headroom there is or how much available power limit there is. So that leaves on the board partners for like no matter who it is, whether it's us or any of our competitors, the solution is the same. Make sure that the power limit can reach those maximum levels and that our thermal system can adequately cool the card, sustain that performance when the GPU and the VRM especially are outputting all that heat. If there is enough headroom, great. The GPU boost will allow it to go even more. It's all automatic on NVIDIA's side. So all the board partners have to do is really just optimize for thermals, and then the GPU will basically do the rest of the work when it comes to like just giving all that performance.
Cool. I'm curious, maybe Andrew, you can take this one. Is there anything you look for, like when you shop for graphics cards these days, besides it actually being in stock? What are some like things or maybe extra features that kind of make some cards stand out from others?
Most people look at a graphics card and say, okay, I want the most bang for my buck, and typically that equates to performance. But that gets a little murky, especially when a lot of graphics cards are using, for the most part, the same core component, the GPU itself. So when it comes down to, like, say you're shopping for any card that wants RTX 3090 or 3080, it comes down to your little personal preferences. If the performance ends up being the same, you now have to narrow down to how much do you like how it looks. So for some people, they might like how, like, say this MSI Supreme card, how like, it really lights in the dark, how it just shines with this aluminum on the enclosure and the backplate. So this is an example of like a high-end air-cooled card that we have. We did talk about this a little during our virtual CES event, because this marks a new milestone in our graphics card development. Because we just reapproach how we design a graphics card, like make it exquisite, make it prestigious. So we went like above and beyond to make it like as good as we can make it look. I believe Jared has a sample, so maybe.
Yes, I'm working on that.
It was comments, real quick comments.
It was a rough fall time frame. All those cards that launched, but yeah, it's interesting. What are your three cards there? You've got the Supreme up front, and then what are the other two? Well, you got the Seahawk too, right?
And then on the table right now. This is Supreme. This is the one most in the front. In the middle, this is the Gaming X Trio. And then lastly, we have the 3-fan variant of the Ventus.
And the Ventus doesn't have the new like integrated rim on the fans, which helps to increase like static pressure, right?
It does not, correct. So Seahawk on the radiator fans, Supreme and Gaming X Trio, they have torque span 4.0. So it's that rim. It captures air, focuses it down. Ventus here actually uses torque span 3.0. This is still good. It is a proven design used last on our 20 series Gaming X Trio, and that was still a very well-reviewed, received card. So even on the Ventus, it may be in regards, like maybe people regard it as a lower tier model compared to the other two, but do not be fooled by like, it's just because it's less does not mean it's nothing. It's still a good card. It's built on proven technology that is demonstrated in our previous generation. So and it's great stuff. You still like even though it's essential MSI, you still have great high performance circuit board being cooled by a robust cooler, and with the 3-fan model, that's just a lot to go with.
So Andrew, in addition to reviewing our desktops, has a lot of our PC builds for the site. So I'm curious if anything here stands out to you, Andrew.
I mean, one thing that stands out, and obviously there's some plus and minus to this, is on the Seahawk itself, the extension to a 240 millimeter radiator. Because on the one hand, that's going to keep things a lot cooler. On the other hand, the 120 millimeter takes up a lot less space. So I guess my question is, like, are you going to see 120 millimeter versions for perhaps not the 3090 and the 3080, but maybe a 3060 Seahawk or a 3070 Seahawk with 120 millimeter for those who don't have that much space for radiators in their cases?
So right now, there is only plans to release Seahawk for RTX 3090 and RTX 3080. And going by our release cycles in like past generation, there has basically never been a Seahawk card released for 3060 or below. So I don't expect there to be a Seahawk for the cards, for at least the GPUs that you mentioned, like 3060. 3070 is a little bit more up there. The main reasons for these is twofold. One is the need for such a thermal solution. 3070 is, it even though I can't, like, it's not confirmed that it's going to have a Seahawk cooler, but I think it does sit within like that very realm of possibility, just because the thermal output is high enough. So which would necessitate, or at least if not necessitate, benefit from having a better cooler because of the way how GPU boost behaves with regards to, like, thermal headroom and power limits. So 3090, 3080, the GPU cores themselves, they can get very hot when they're under load. So it makes sense to, like, have, like, just a very extravagant at times, or this is not so much extravagant. This is pretty proven, very common on CPU coolers. But this for a graphics card, like, you don't usually see it, just because for the most part, air coolers are good enough. They definitely will stay within spec. They keep it cool. They allow it to, like, stay running for extended use for a long period of time, weeks.
And you've also got the fact that with the de-emphasis of SLI and Crossfire, like, we're getting a lot of 2.5, 2.9, 2.8, 2.7 slot coolers, and for air coolers, like, that's a lot of cooling capacity, and so you don't need the liquid cooling so much these days, unless, like you say, you're at the 3080, 3090. I'm kind of the opinion, because that liquid cooler is a cost. I feel like if you're looking at a 3070 and thinking about adding a liquid cooler, I would much rather have a 3080, like a cheap 3080, rather than an extreme 3070, because it's a big jump in performance. So
that's fair.
Like the 3080 to the 3090 is a different matter. That's a doubling in price, but 3080, I think that's, like, I would push people, like, instead of spending more on the tier down, you should move on to the next tier up before you start worrying about extravagances. Unless, some people really like their bling. So, I'm more of the practical guy, where I'm like, no, I want the performance first and I'll worry about bling later. I'm happy with the Ventus if that's what I can find in stock at a good price. But I know some people really want the aesthetics of the Supreme or the Gaming X Trio or whatever, and that's fine too. There's that interesting thing, though, with, like, a lot of the RGB faces the fans of your cards, and those end up facing down in, like, 95% of your PC cases, which makes it a little superfluous.
Yeah, so. for some graphics cards that are a little stuck, behind imagining how it will look in a finished build, I think at least, for a couple of generations now, we've really considered, like, how does it look in action to build. So for Seahawk, that's less of a concern, because we it's kind of designed for, like, okay, you want the ultimate cooling solution. So in this case, like, the in a ways, how it looks is a little bit an afterthought when compared to, like, say, Supreme. Like, come on, it doesn't have RGB. But like you say, Jared, it really depends on, like, different people. They have different priorities, and I did allude to, like, the pricing on Seahawk, because of the cost of the cooler. I think you get a hint by looking at how much a CPU cooler that uses liquid at whether it be like 120 millimeters or 240 millimeter radiator, how much those cost. And you can see, like, yeah, this assembly here, for some people, they can live without it. They can be fine with an air cooler if that means, they still get the same great performance at a lower price.
Related to price, do you have any details? Like, it looks like several of your competitors, I think we've confirmed that Asus and Zotac and EVGA have all announced that because of tariffs, their prices have gone up. Is that something that we're going to see from MSI as well? I mean, it's kind of like, we still don't have cards in stock really, but it looks like the pricing on most of the graphics cards is set to go up even more because of these US tariffs right now.
I can confirm that that MSI will be raising the prices on its graphics cards due to the to the reactivation of the tariffs. and it's for that reason. Like, we're still working on the prices. So like for Seahawk, we just announced it today, but we like I mentioned, like we're still trying to figure out like how to bring it in from our factory. We haven't even decided how much we're going to price it, just because the cost of the shipping and the tax we have to pay just to have the border customs release it to us. So that's something we don't have finalized information, but we can say that there will be a price increase.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere where Javier asked where you can look at the MSRP for your cards? You list that publicly somewhere?
We do not sell direct, so we don't list our prices publicly. But the MSRP is pretty accurately reflected on most of the e-tailer sites. So like Newegg, B&H, Adorama. We're actually not stocking that many in Amazon right now. So the best place to look, I would prefer, is Newegg if you want to see like a reflection of how the MSRP should be.
Awesome. And I know you have some motherboards to show us, but I do want to take at least one more GPU question. Somebody's asking about the RTX Gaming X Trio 3080. They noticed that it's using plastic backplates versus last gen's metal. Was there a particular reason for this change?
So the backplate, it is technically plastic, a polymer, because that's the nature, like how it's defined in a material sense. But it is truly made of graphene, which does actually have thermal and mostly thermal conductive properties. Some have entertained the idea of like electrical conductivity, but here it's been mixed with into a composite where we're mainly after the thermal conductivity. So it's hard to see for a lot of people whether when they look at how other people have it. But what a lot of people kind of are unable to experience when you hold this card is when you feel this graphene backplate. It doesn't feel like a normal plastic. It actually feels quite cold to the touch. It does, in ways, it does resemble metal to the touch, just of how when you feel it, it's cold. Like when you touch like whatever's cold, like the side of your refrigerator or the bottom of a pan or a cold pot, you just feel a heat coming out of your hand. That's what you experience when you touch this backplate. So there is a case to be said for like, okay, yes, it's technically a plastic, but it's not the plastic you're familiar with. This is a plastic that's made to be thermally conductive. And we pursued this because we were looking for something unique, something innovative when we're like designing our next generation cooling designs and systems. So we were looking like what's out there, what can we really try to enhance the thermal properties of our cooler. And we came across graphene, and we have integrated into a composite into our backplate, and we have testing that shows that it actually does work.
And it's lighter weight than like your traditional metal backplates as well, is it correct?
Yes. So being the nature that it's mostly just made of carbon atoms, the weight and structure is going to be lighter than metal while still having a lot of rigidity. It's a material property of the graphene and the composite is mixed with.
Cool. So I know you have some motherboards to show us before. I want to make sure we check those out.
Right. So I have two motherboards with me. There will be more as we announce later on, but for now, I'm allowed to talk about the first of our Z590 products. These will be supported for the Intel platform, available with 10th gen processors, and then later on an upcoming unannounced Intel processor. So let's see if I have this positioned nicely in our camera view here. So this first one, which will be on the lower of this stream, is our MEG Z590 Godlike. That'll be our flagship for the Z590 series. And then next to it, I have here, actually I'm gonna bring it to camera. So this is our MEG Z590 Ace. So these are both within our MEG family. There are our enthusiast grade motherboards for people who are just looking for like a lot of things out of their motherboard: overclocking, gaming, productivity, expandabilities, all the things like, that a motherboard can be good at, we put it all in there.
Yeah, if you have never seen a godlike motherboard from MSI, it's literally the kitchen sink approach. Like, you get a massive box and you're like, oh man, there's 10 gig Ethernet in there. There's M.2 expansion cards. Previous models I think had your what do you call it, encoder cards. What's this little box on the side there for the godlike postcode box or?
A remote?
It is. It's basically a remote control that you connect. You wired into the motherboard, and it lets you do a lot of features that you can do. What we call a smart button, so power reset, as well as reset CMOS and even flash BIOS if you wanted to.
So if you have any kids, you probably don't want that.
Yeah, they might think, oh, this fun.
I'm totally imagining my boy walking off with that, thinking, "Hey, this is a new toy." Reset.
Oh no!
Is this your first board with its own remote?
As far as I can tell, I'm not aware of any other motherboard that comes with a little remote control device. So, but this will be nice for people who just don't who want to get really into testing on their test bench without digging back to their system, pressing buttons, or trying to read the postcode. They can just connect on the wire, pull it out somewhere where it's easier to read, and just leave it at that.
It looks like a board built for testers of motherboards like me and Paul and stuff, because it's not something most people need, but it's super handy when you're like, hey, this thing's, if your postcodes, I think you can have them show CPU temperature. So, rather than trying to peek around the side and look inside your case, it's like, yeah, you can just have this thing sitting next to your case and you're look over and, oh yeah, the CPU's running at 50 degrees. Awesome.
Yeah, so, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely a point I forgot about. But yes, the MSI postcode readout, when you're loaded into Windows, it will show temperature. So yeah, good point. It definitely is you can keep it out there for people who just really love to have their on-hand hardware monitors.
It's funny to see a remote that does so much, because I'm used to having so much experience with systems. You get a remote and that means, oh, okay, this thing right here, this is what you're going to use to change the RGB. We don't have a software solution. So it's cool to see one that has all that functionality, though. Could you change the RGB with that?
This one, no, it does not have any RGB control features. As you can see here, it's mostly just most affecting game boost features. So MSI's automatic overclocking, the preset profiles if you want to go up or down, and then power reset, and of course the hardware monitor readout or postcode readout is on there. So, but nothing for RGB.
Very cool. So I think we have some time to squeeze in some viewer questions. We'll start with Ben Dover. I'm not going to finish that. When will the MSI?
It's been a long week, everybody.
When will the MSI? He almost got me. When will the MSI 1650 Super be back in stock? Is there anything you could share there?
1650 Super. That's a last generation part.
Right.
I don't know what the current status of it is. I'm not aware of what the shipping or production schedule of it. So I can't confirm if that's about to go out, if that's about to be gone forever. So, or so simply to answer your question, I actually don't know.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know either.
MSI says new graphics cards are coming for the budget sector. I believe that's what he said, right?
More 1650s now.
No, we want the 3050.
Don't know. I only heard of a 3060 not too long ago.
That's right.
Is there anything you could tell us about a new version of MSI Afterburner? We have a viewer saying they noticed that the 3080 cannot be overclocked the way in which he used to overclock his 2080 Super. So any updates to MSI Afterburner you can share?
None really that I'm aware of. Afterburner mostly carries the same functionality as it always has. Changing fan speeds, changing power limits. So I'm not familiar with any change. The one big change we introduced in the last generation, the GeForce 20 series, was the addition of OC scanner. And that may be what the question is directed toward, because right now, OC scanner it's behaving very inconsistently on the RTX 30 series. We are working with NVIDIA to try to get the OC scanner functionality built within Afterburner to work more consistently, to work smoother. So that, I feel, is the one change the end user might be alluding to, because the change is that we were able to complete the functionality of OC scanner with RTX 30 series graphics cards.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, RTX 30 series Ampere is not Turing, and they don't behave the same. So like people kind of got used to this idea, like I should be able to get this much of an overclock out of an NVIDIA Turing card, and you're not guaranteed that same level. And I've seen, like he was saying, the OC scanner on Ampere, it's been a little problematic. In fact, I think I've had it complete successfully maybe a quarter of the time. So a lot of times it fails halfway through or a quarter of the way through, and you're like, oh, so you end up going with manual overclocking. But I'm sure like MSI and NVIDIA and others are working to improve the situation with their latest gen GPU architecture. It's just, when you fundamentally change so much about an architecture, the software that scans it and deals with it has to change as well.
And did we get a chance to look at all of the products you had to show us, David?
Yes, so it's just these 2 motherboards and these 4 graphics cards.
No AMD cards. Zanza Loki is looking for red style cards.
Well, there's been
like the 10 series GTX cards were red and black, right?
Yeah. Oh, I thought they meant Team Red.
Oh, yeah. Is that what he's saying?
I interpret the question as like, where's Radeon? I don't have Radeon to show. There's like really no new products there. Oh, actually, my colleague here has something. So I'll please.
Oh, look, you ask and you shall receive.
I was sending you with the actual Gaming X Trio.
Ta-da.
So, what I was about to say was even though, but for the most part, this GeForce card that I'm holding in my hand will look the same as a Radeon card. So we only offer 2 lines for our Radeon series cards. That will be basically the reference model and our Gaming X Trio models. But that's about it. So if you're hoping to see more Radeon, no, unfortunately, we don't have really anything to show aside from this right here, our Gaming X Trio.
So they actually were looking for twin style cards.
Oh, two fan? That's a little uncertain. I wouldn't rule out the possibility, just because we do have 2 fan models on our GeForce cards. But right now, the reason why we are not, considering more Radeon graphics cards, like different variations of it, to come out at this time, is just because there's not enough supply. There are not enough Radeon GPU chips to start segmenting into more products. Right now, our main concern is our various customers, our vendors. They like to see a steady supply of any one product come in, and the best way for us to address that is just to produce as many of as few products as possible.
Great. So wow, that time went fast. It looks like we are about coming to the end of our hour, but I want to let everyone know that Tom's Hardware will be back in just a little bit, about 30 minutes, 6 p.m. Eastern time, for our next CES live stream, which will be with iBuyPower. So be sure to like Tom's Hardware on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our live streams or any of the other awesome content that we're always sharing. So I want to thank Jared and Andrew. As Andrew mentioned, we have a lot of great content on our site. If you want to look more into these products, check out our news stream. We're definitely giving you some info there. And thanks to Team MSI. Any last words from you guys?
No, it's been a pleasure. I see Cliff back there. He introduced some laptops and desktops, so I can speak for him. But we certainly enjoy our time seeing you all again. It's I saw like face I haven't seen a whole year in person. So it's good to see everyone's still in good spirits. Very excited to talk about new hardware.
Let's do this again in 6 months, maybe in person. Get vaccinated and go.
I hope so.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest CES I've ever been to. This all virtual all the time.
The opportunity is interesting because I'm trying to be creative with how I do close-ups of the product to best represent, to both you guys and our audience how it might look. Obviously, I cannot demonstrate how it feels, so that's something we're sorely missing. But for these graphics cards and motherboards, it really is. Pictures can't really describe how they look in person.
Well, we'll look forward to getting our hands on these products throughout the year. And yeah, I definitely miss writing hands-on articles. Haven't really been able to do that this show. Well,
I don't miss the cab lines.
Well, again, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Andrew, Jared, David, and Cliff. That is our show. We'll see you next time.